Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the AI Summit in London this year. My name's Tim Ensor, and I'm going to be your host for the session during today. Two items of housekeeping. Firstly, as usual, there are no fire alarms planned today, and the fire evacuation notice would come through the PA system if we have it, so please familiarize yourself with where the fire exits are. The second point, just to note, is that all of the question and answers for our speakers on the session will be through the Swapcard app. So if you haven't had a chance to download it yet, please do so. And that way you can interact with each other and with the speakers. So I will come and introduce myself slightly more formally in a second, but I'm thrilled to say that our first speaker for today is Chris Felt, who's the Minister for Technology in the Department for Media, Culture and Sport. And he's joining us to kick off the day and kick off the entire event, actually, to share what the government is doing to support the growth of technology in the UK. So to start the day, please join me in welcoming Chris Felt, the Minister for Technology.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you, Tim, for that introduction. It is a particular pleasure to be here because I should start with a confession, by the way. This is the first event I've spoken at since being appointed by the Prime Minister as Minister for Technology last week. So I am brand new in this position, but I'm particularly delighted to have been given this appointment because I'm, I think, one of the very few, possibly even one of the only MPs or ministers to have a science background, having studied physics at Oxford in the mid-1990s and done a master's degree specialising in theoretical quantum mechanics afterwards. Let me tell you, there aren't many people in Parliament or serving as ministers with that sort of background. And I've always been extremely interested in the intersection between business and technology. In fact, when I was 21 years old, which was longer ago than my youthful appearance would suggest, I set up a distribution business that we later floated on AIM, and 2 takeovers later, that is now part of Tesco. That business was substantially tech-enabled. It used predictive stock ordering to reduce inventory to minimal levels while enabling next-day delivery at very high rates of fulfillment. If you looked at the technology we used back then in the year 2000, you would consider it, by today's standards, embarrassingly rudimentary. But at the time, we felt quite pleased with ourselves. But look, I'm delighted to be here with you today to support the endeavours of this extremely important industry. And I was especially pleased to read earlier this week the figures that I'm sure you all saw as well, showing that in the first half of 2021, this year, 1,400 private UK tech companies raised £13.5 billion, which was by far the highest amount of private capital raised in any country in Europe, and it was double the amount raised by the second-placed country, which was Germany. So I think you can be collectively incredibly proud of that achievement. I'm not sure where France featured in that list. I hear they've got some obsolete submarine technology now available very cheaply, which might help boost their figures. But anyway, look, it's very clear that the UK is in an admirable position with a rich legacy in spearheading many of the great leaps in artificial intelligence over the past few decades. We've got advanced scholarships at universities and research centres around the country, and in London, we have the most vibrant startup environment outside of San Francisco, with companies like DeepMind, Benevolent AI, and Improbable pushing the envelope of what is possible with AI in their respective fields. And we've seen this year alone, in the first half of this year alone, 20 UK tech companies achieving unicorn status, including Tractable and Zego. And in fact, at the top end of the unicorn spectrum, if such a thing exists, we've got 10 privately owned tech firms now valued at over $10 billion US. So a phenomenal track record here in the UK. And in the AI field particularly, I was delighted to see Accenture, which uses AI to discover new drugs, raising nearly $250 million US earlier this year. So it's clear to me that from Alan Turing to Demis Hassabis, the UK has always led, and I hope will always continue to lead the world. For the government's part, let me say that we are completely committed to maintaining and building the UK's leading tech position, especially in AI. We are already the clear European leader in artificial intelligence, and by most measures, globally in third place behind the USA and China. And I am confident that we can catch them up. So let me say clearly today, we want UK innovators to locate in the UK, we want you to scale up in the UK, we want you to succeed in the UK, we want the UK to lead in this field, and that is a critical national priority for this government. It's critical not just for the obvious economic reasons, but because artificial intelligence is a profound technology. It is quite clearly the future. Your field has the potential. In fact, I think it will ultimately infuse every aspect of our personal and business lives in ways we can't currently imagine. As Andrew Ng has argued from Stanford, AI will ultimately fulfill a similar enabling role in the coming century to the role that electricity and afterwards regular computing played in the last century, as a meta-enabler which underpins activity in a huge range of fields, including fields where there isn't any immediate obvious applicability. The government is trying to push this wherever we possibly can. Let me give you a couple of examples where we have already embraced AI technology, which I hope is just the start, just the beginning. So the Land Registry, one of the drier areas of government activity, has embraced AI for intelligent document comparison, so where people file things like title deeds, we have for new properties, we have to check them against the original plans to make sure there are no discrepancies, and that is now being done using AI systems with a 100% accuracy rate, which is replacing a whole load of very manual and very laborious manual checks that previously took place. The National Grid is working with the Alan Turing Institute to improve solar forecasting, to work out when we can rely on solar energy generation versus regular modes like gas or nuclear, or in some cases, rarely these days, coal. So by forecasting that better, they can load the grid more accurately and more effectively. So that work is being done. And even Manchester City Council is working with AI technology and 16 large data sets to identify troubled families, so families where children are potentially at risk. And by analysing those data sets, they can actively go directly to families where the children might be at risk. And that saves a lot of time, and it also safeguards children, obviously, as well. I think my favourite example, it's not from the public sector, but it's some work that IBM Watson have been doing with Wimbledon. They've got an AI system which can review thousands of hours of tennis video footage and identify the bits of the play where the highlights, which are most appropriate to be highlighted for broadcast. So that's pretty good. So look, I think it's vital for the government to engage with this and to drive this forward. This AI summit is extremely timely because, as you will have heard from the Secretary of State on Monday, today the government is launching its national AI strategy, setting out its strategic vision for how we can remain preeminent in the AI sphere and remain a superpower for many, many years to come. We've already taken quite a few important steps. For example, over the last 7 years, we have invested £2.3 billion, which is a lot of money by anyone's standards, supporting AI. That's included £250 million to develop the use of AI in the NHS, the same amount for the Centre for Connected and Autonomous Vehicles, and £100 million funding 1,000 AI PhDs, in addition to which the British Business Bank has invested already £372 million in UK AI companies, and that is just the start. Our strategy has been made possible by the AI Council, comprised of leading industry experts. So let me take this opportunity to thank them for the incredible work they've done advising and counselling government. Without their work, the strategy would most certainly not have been possible. They have worked incredibly closely with the Office for AI in developing and maturing the strategy being published today, I think in about an hour's time. So what's in the strategy? Well, it's extremely ambitious. It aims to build on our leadership, and it's structured around 3 critical pillars. The first of those is investing in and planning for the long-term needs of the AI ecosystem to maintain our position as a global superpower in AI. Secondly, it aims to support the transition to an AI-enabled economy, so making sure that companies around the UK and in all sectors adopt AI. And thirdly, it aims to get the governance and regulation of AI right, we hope in a way that will then be adopted around the world. Let me just develop each of those 3 pillars a little more. So in the first pillar, firstly, we intend to support skill development. We intend to continue and grow the Turing Fellowships. We intend to fund large numbers of PhDs in AI to make sure you've got a ready flow of highly qualified people that you can then hire into your businesses. We intend to continue and grow postgraduate industrial masters and conversion courses to make sure that flow of qualified people continues. But also we intend to be flexible about visas, so you can hire the best people from around the world with the expertise which you need via the Global Talent Visa, the High Potential Individual route, and the Scale-Up Visa route. So where you identify a person that you need to hire anywhere in the world with the skills your business requires, you will be able to make sure they can come into the UK in a low hassle and a straightforward way. We are here to make that happen, working with obviously the Home Office. We also intend to support the National Centre for Computing Education to make sure children are getting excited about AI. We're going to be publishing a report into the UK's future computation capacity to support AI research and development and commercialisation. And of course, we're going to support primary academic research and R&D into AI. And we're going to make sure there is ready access to big data, which of course you need to draw on in order to run AI systems. A lot of that information is held by the government. I've mentioned a couple of examples already. So we want to make sure that big data is available to companies who need to use it. In the second pillar, in terms of making sure AI gets adopted, it's going to be at the heart of our levelling up agenda. So across the UK regions and across industry sectors, we want to make sure everybody is adopting AI to improve their businesses. We're particularly going to be launching a defence AI strategy later this year via the Ministry of Defence to use AI applications in a military and in a defence capacity. And we're going to be working across government to identify where AI can provide a catalytic contribution to strategic challenges that our country faces. And finally, in the third pillar, I mentioned standardisation and regulation. So we intend to pilot an AI standards hub to try and make sure that UK-grown AI standards get adopted around the world, including conducting an analysis of algorithmic transparency to publish a cross-government standard and provide updated guidance on AI ethics and safety for the public sector. One of the most crucial areas of this work is going to be setting out our policy and position on governance and regulation, and we're going to set that out in a policy paper in the coming months. We intend that to be a pro-innovation position. So far, we've been very pragmatic in delivering guidance for the public sector, working with the World Economic Forum, the Alan Turing Institute, the ICO, and others. And when we set out our wider views on standardization and regulation, we intend to do that in a way which supports innovation and supports rapid deployment of AI technology in the real world. We want to obviously reassure the public that the technology is safe and poses no threat, which is my strong belief that is the case, and set standards that can be adopted globally, as I've said. We intend to keep any form of regulatory intervention to a minimum. We'll seek to use existing structures rather than setting up new ones, and we will approach the issue with a permissive mindset, aiming to make innovation easy and straightforward while avoiding any public harm where there is clear evidence that exists. But we're wanting to make this happen, not put up any barriers. And certainly my own background in business, I set up and ran businesses for 15 years previously to being elected to Parliament, and I think any form of regulation should not get in the way of innovation unnecessarily, which in some cases around the world it clearly does. We'll be looking at how we can continue supporting advanced research in AI, whether in a university, a startup, or in a large company. We're going to launch a UKRI National AI Research and Innovation Programme to support the transformation of the UK's capability in AI and better coordinate our activities. And finally, we're going to examine, together with employers and education providers, the skills needed, as I described earlier, to make sure you've got the workforce you need. The conversations we've had in developing this strategy are just the start. We've obviously had in the past the sector deal, we've had the work of the AI Council, and we're going to deliver today our strategic vision. But these conversations are not over, they are just starting. We want to work closely, hand in hand with you and the work you're doing to make sure that the government is doing everything it can in every sphere to help you and your investors and your businesses succeed in the United Kingdom. And there is nothing we won't do to make sure that you succeed, because your success is the United Kingdom's success, it's the economy's success, and it's success for the public as a whole. And just to echo what my colleague, the Secretary of State, said in the forward of the strategy, artificial intelligence is here now, it's improving our lives right now. We want to make sure the UK leads, and with the strategy being published in an hour or so's time, we believe we can deliver that. So listen, congratulations for the work you've done so far. You're leading Europe. Good luck with your endeavours in the months and years to come. We are here to help you, and just finally have a fantastic time at this wonderful summit today. It's a great pleasure to join you. Thank you very much.
Well, fantastic.